Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. XRP feels stuck, and a lot of people are getting impatient. Look, I've got I got my social media. I can see the comments that are coming in from all sorts of people, and I don't know that it's most XRP holders, but even if it's just a smaller amount, it could just be the case that these are particularly noisy and irritated XRP holders. And I understand it. Like, we've been through a lot of sideways price action after a very large liquidation event. There has been some volatility in recent months, and not all of it fantastic. Despite the fact that XRP hit a new all-time high of $3.65 in July, and despite the fact that just, a little over a month ago, maybe 6 weeks or so ago, Bitcoin hit an all-time high of about $126,000. But it's kind of like, hey, market, what have you done for me lately? So, look, I'll just say this. The charts and the macro situation tell a very different story about what's building behind the scenes, and that prompts me to be very optimistic for what's going to happen as we wrap up this market cycle ultimately. And I'm going to share with you perspective from a ton of XRP chart analysts, 9 in total. And you'll see that although there are some that are still warning there's a possibility for XRP to go down lower, none of them are saying that this is the end for XRP. In fact, with only one exception, all of them are insisting that what is going to happen is XRP is going to finally melt faces, rocket to the upside, and pretty much all of the XRP chart analysts that I follow are predicting at least double-digit price action for XRP, so that actually hasn't changed. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And as I record this video, it is 7:30 p.m. Central Time, Sunday, November 2nd, 2025. XRP is $2.49. Bitcoin's at $109,694. And sentiment is complete garbage. Here's a post from Kip Harriage. He's a managing partner and founder of Vertical Research Advisory. And so he's actually been in investing for literally several decades at this point. And he's noticing the same thing that you're noticing, if you're on social media at least. People are negative. And it's interesting, though, because out of the chart analysts that I regularly follow, almost none of them are bearish. Almost none of them are negative. It's just one of those things where it's like the sentiment is what it is, and the typical lemming retail speculator is very frequently wrong, But here's what Kip had to say. Not sure about yours, but my X is full of people predicting a severe market turn down. It's more than predicting. It's like they're begging and pleading. This is happening while we're at all-time highs, entering the best month and 6 months of the year, with a Trump administration doing everything possible to surge the economy and markets into 2026 and the midterms. In my 4 decades, I've never seen bearish sentiment like this at all-time highs. More, please. And isn't that fascinating? If you're looking at traditional finance, just look at equities and various indexes that we follow. They're all literally hanging around all-time highs. And we're bearish? We're bearish right now. And even crypto, frankly, it's not, like, if you look at Bitcoin, which leads the market, it's not that far down from its all-time high of $126,000. And XRP, it's down. It's lost, about a third of its value from the all-time high, close to it anyway. That's normal in crypto, though, and it's safely hanging out above $2 for the first time in its freaking history, in 13-year history. Now it's just safely hanging out in this range. I cannot relate to the people that are bitching up a storm here about crypto markets. Especially, just have some perspective. I mean, a year ago, the asset class is worth $2.2 trillion, and now it's worth $3.6 trillion 1 year later. I can't relate to the negativity. Here's a post from Crypto Insight UK. He noticed it as well. He says, "It feels so bearish on crypto Twitter. Honestly, I can't believe this is where we are. I get it's not been easy, but it's not doomsday, and it feels like it is. XRP holders, we've basically been above $2 for a year. Before last November, we'd sat below $2 for 7 years, and now we've been above it for about a year." Yeah, so I'll pause and note, he's certainly correct in that, but we were actually for most of the last decade hanging out around like 30 to 40 cents, sometimes more like 20 cents. So that's been my experience with XRP. So if you have that perspective, it's hard to be negative here. I'm very thrilled with XRP. Anyway, and then he says, I'm not saying I don't want us to go higher. Of course I want us to, and I think we will. That's why I've not sold. However, take a breath and realize that right now we're at $2.50. That's a 5x from the average of the last 7 years. Perspective, man. Just chill out, everyone. Yeah, and he's right there. That's the right way to look at this. Now, here's a short thread from Raoul Pal. Raoul, of course, is the founder and CEO of Real Vision and Global Macro Investor. He's a former Goldman Sachs executive, and he does hold some XRP. And he knows what's going on. Look at what drives markets here. Liquidity, my friends. And so he shared this chart and wrote the following. I usually, wait, actually, let me start here. Crypto is driven by liquidity, as you know. Actually, let me just note 3 things here, because he uses abbreviations here. And I'm going to read his abbreviations the way that he wrote his thread, but let's just make sure that you guys know what they are. So he's referencing Total 2 ES. So the Total 2 chart is a chart that shows the top 125 coins by market cap, excluding Bitcoin. And the Total 2 ES is the same as that, except for it's also, in addition to excluding Bitcoin, it's also excluding stable coins. That's what the ES stands for, excluding stable coins. Also, he references TGA, which is a Treasury General Account, and also PBOC, which is People's Bank of China. So anyway, post reads as follows. Crypto is driven by liquidity, as you know. For Total 2 ES to break higher, you need liquidity to make new highs. The government shutdown and TGA delayed it, but the everything code is in the process by which debts get monetized and to the extension of debts to 5 years. The largest part of the liquidity lies ahead. And folks, that's what I've been highlighting a lot. This is a core to his thesis. He says we're going to go way higher, and this market's going to go into 2026, so Q1, maybe even Q2. And he says the reason it's extended is not because anything is actually different than previous cycles other than time. The reason time is different has to do with debt refinancing. And it's on average, previously, it was 4 years, but that changed thanks to the pandemic. And now it's averaged out to 5 years, which changes when all sorts of stuff happens. And it changes the business cycle metric. And so that's what he is referencing right here. And then he wrote, the liquidity flood is building, and the government reopening will be the start of a multi-vector liquidity injection from the TGA to the PBOC balance sheet, from bank reserves to the end of quantitative tightening and more. Macro is a long game. You need patience for it to play out. And so, yeah, absolutely, he's correct. Crypto follows liquidity, and right now we're sitting in front of what Raoul Pal calls a multi-vector liquidity flood. Sounds fancy. And so these charts show it clearly. When liquidity rises, crypto rises. Them's the facts, my friends. When liquidity stalls, the market chops. And recently, we didn't see weakness. We saw a pause that was caused by the government shutdown and the Treasury building its cash account. So when the government reopens, of course, spending resumes. And also, as he noted, quantitative tightening, it is nearing an end. It's in fact December 1st is when it ends. So that, and then China is easing. Ambiguous interest costs historically force liquidity injections. So I mean, costs are outrageous, right? So of course there are going to be liquidity injections. There's no question. So the system doesn't have a choice. That's a key takeaway, right? Liquidity must expand from here. This is why I'm so excited as an XRP holder. XRP moves when liquidity floods into risk assets and utility-driven digital assets like XRP. And this time, of course, liquidity is not coming alone, my friends. It's arriving alongside a clearer regulatory environment for XRP because the United States, of course, is pro-crypto for the first time in history. It's coming with institutional platforms being built and obviously a global shift towards tokenization. That's a huge and very real narrative in 2025. Great for XRP, of course. But, the last time liquidity surged, crypto ripped. It just did. This setup is even stronger, though, like right now. And so, yeah, macro plays out slower than you want sometimes, but when liquidity hits, altcoins move fast, okay? And XRP historically lags, and then it explodes. So it only isn't doing something until one day you wake up and it actually is. That's always how this goes. It's just that that's a small percentage of the time. But yeah, of course, it's still coming here. Because think about it, as liquidity increases, people, businesses, institutions, they have more funds. It's got to go somewhere. And so the more money you have, the more likely you are to invest a certain amount of that into risk on assets like stocks and crypto. And then a certain percentage of that specifically goes into XRP. There's no reason to think that's any different. And he's highlighted. So nothing has changed here. Nothing is broken. This time is not different. I mean, you could say, yeah, the time is, but the metrics that cause the timing to be what it is, which is what actually matters, that has not changed. It definitely has not changed. Here's a post from chart analyst Vet. He says, empirically, November has been the strongest month since 2010. And this is Bitcoin seasonality, average monthly performance, 2010 through 2025. And you can see this is historically the best month for Bitcoin, up on average 38.5%. And Q4 should be fantastic. I mean, especially with the government reopening, everything that I just cited here. There's a real chance that markets will be moving in a positive way before the year ends. And then as far as a peak, if Raoul Pal is correct and his thesis ends up proving to be right, then you're looking at a peak in either Q1 or Q2 of 2026, next year. Here's a post from chart analyst CW. Says the accumulation of Bitcoin and ETH is still going strong and has been even stronger recently. Whales are still accumulating. The rally is being delayed because their accumulation hasn't ended yet. However, what is clear is that whales are accumulating, and their accumulation has been even stronger recently. And so that's the chart for Bitcoin. You can see the inflows up here, astronomical. And here's the chart for Ethereum, which historically kicks off alt. It's like, I mean, the smart money they're positioning, it just, don't be surprised when eventually Ethereum just starts ripping to the upside and the entire sector of alts just ultimately follows. Don't be surprised when that happens. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache. Bitcoin. So he writes, so you think they're giving you 4 months to exit the market? What you're seeing here is textbook accumulation before the next leg higher happens. Just be patient. Okay, and I brought that point up the other day. Somebody else brought it up, and I shared it in one of my videos. And I just got to ask, if this is the top, how come for the first time in history you're getting several months to exit? Because normally when a top actually happens, the top is the top for a very short period of time, and then you see a precipitous drop. Where the hell is that? Bitcoin is not, like I said earlier in the video, Bitcoin is not far off from its all-time high, close to $126,000. Why is this time different if we're entering a bear market? Well, I think it's pretty clear. It's a very low chance that we're entering a bear market. I think it's fair to say. In fact, take a look at this here. So a big move is going to happen. This is a post from chart analyst Matthew Hyland. It says Bitcoin monthly closes. Monthly Bollinger Bands have reached the most extreme levels in Bitcoin's entire history. Look at the top and bottom boundaries for the Bollinger Bands. Never tighter in history. Now, this metric doesn't tell you if the market's going to break to the upside or the downside, but it does indicate when they get squeezed like this, it does indicate you're going to see a big move. And this is, again, the tightest in the history of Bitcoin. So if the bears are right and we're entering a bear market, when it breaks, it's going to just plummet to the downside with ridiculous force. If the bulls are correct, as I think they are, I think it's way more probable, obviously, this thing's going to rip to the upside. And this is the same metric that we were looking at for XRP throughout all of last year, 2024. XRP, by the time April rolled around last year, tightest Bollinger Bands in XRP's history. And then for the next 4, 5, 6 months, whatever it was, they got even tighter. And I kept reporting that. And I was like, guys, look, I don't pretend to know for sure when the XRP is going to break, but when it does, it's going to be with ridiculous force. And I was betting throughout 2024 that when it ripped, it would be to the upside because we were in a bull market. Today, we are still in a bull market. So when this goes, capital is going to rotate. Ultimately, because Bitcoin's going to find a peak. It'll be the final parabola almost certainly, if history is to rhyme with itself at least. Then people will take profits and it'll rotate into coins like XRP. Same thing we see every freaking time. Here's a post from chart analyst Osimka, XRP. Says, this one is for the XRP community, where I see some gurus preaching for the end of the cycle. Bros, it is hard to see this range as anything less than a long reaccumulation after November's surge. He's talking November last year, of course. In Elliott wave terms, an ABC with a sharp ending in the C wave. Very common. Last shakeout or spring. And you can see what he's referencing here. He says, there's basically no difference to this reaccumulation example on gold years ago. Thank me later. So you got gold on the right and XRP on the left. He's saying it's the same thing playing out. I won't be surprised if he's proven to be correct. Okay. Here's a post from Chart Nerd. He says XRP vertical accumulation. So he's not changed his targets at all. He says we're in an uptrend, vertical accumulation support, and he's insisting that we're going to see higher sooner rather than later. And he does think that there's a very serious chance that XRP is going to peak somewhere around $27 this market cycle. That's what he's been insisting is likely to occur. And so despite this malaise, in recent times, he's not changing that bet. Here's a post from chart analyst Javon Marks, XRP BTC chart on your screen here. He says, the quoted tweet showcases a successful visual of our prediction of XRP outrunning Bitcoin by over 243%. And I'll pause to note that was December 8th of last year. He says, in that period, XRP's price increased by over 570% from 49 cents to $3.35 plus. Today, we bring you a visual showcasing the potential for XRP to outrun Bitcoin by over 600% this time. This can result in XRP's price increasing drastically. Okay, so there's historic precedent to support that because XRP always gets one major move to the upside, and it can last for a little bit, but it's considered one move, and then you accumulate, and then you get that final burst. The final leg up, which is what we have not had this market cycle, that one historically is bigger than the first one. So that's why, if you're looking at XRP price increasing by about $3 during that first leg, that's why it's not crazy to think that it could be some multiple of that. That's why the analysts that are predicting for double-digit price action for XRP, I don't pretend to know if they're correct. I don't make price predictions myself. I know that's not crazy to speculate about, though. History has shown us, folks. And there'll be so much money sloshing around by the time you get into that euphoric part of the alt season. Yeah, ain't crazy at all. Here's a post from chart analyst Steph is Crypto. He says, XRP flipping the previous bull market peak into support. Is it that bullish? The answer is yes. And you can see what he's talking about here. This was resistance. Look at this. Last cycle, and XRP peaked at $2 last market cycle. Now it's support, and we're safely above that high from last cycle. But that's the point. Like, the support has more than held to this point. We had that, there's that scam wick on October 10th when markets liquidated, but biggest liquidation event in crypto history. But outside of that, I mean, which was very short-lived. It was like how long was it down? Like a minute? It was very short, whatever it was. So yeah, we're safely hanging out above that now. Of course, that's bullish. Here's a post from chart analyst Chad. He says, XRP monthly chart update. This is Chad Ventures here. He says, back-tested lower Fibonacci supports, leaving behind a large wick. It's still hovering below the 1.272 log Fibonacci level, which is the crucial level to break through in order to potentially enable much higher prices. Furthermore, price is sitting right at the monthly Tenkan, which is blue, which has been a strong support in the past. It says, I'm closely monitoring the Tenkan support. And so, key takeaway here, I mean, it's not like, it's not huge news. We're just ranging, but the point is, there's nothing weird, bad, or broken about what's going on, okay? That's a long way of saying we're basically just ranging. Nothing is destroyed here. But like I said at the outset of the video, there are some that think we're going lower, or at least could go lower. Chart analyst Ally Martinez is one of these guys. He says, XRP showing signs of weakness. A retest of $2.25 might be next. And he posted that this morning. So if the whole market goes to the downside, totally plausible. I'd be surprised if XRP goes down by itself, wouldn't you? Here's a post from chart analyst CW who says, if XRP rises to $2.60, most high leverage short positions will be liquidated. Well, that would be nice. I can't imagine betting against XRP. It's just going to keep trending upward as time passes, but okay, you do you, girl. Like, people are just going to keep getting wrecked, though. And then there was this post from chart analyst Greg Crypto, and he says, I'm not going to read the whole thing just for the sake of time, but a key takeaway here is the level that he cites. And he says, as long as price doesn't close below $2.08, every other indicator out there is lying or lagging. And so he has his conservative price target at $13. Somewhere in the middle would be more like $22. And then if he's being optimistic, more like $35 per XRP this market cycle. So again, I don't know if we're going to see a price for XRP that high this market cycle, but that is not crazy talk. It's reasonable to speculate that might happen. So I can see why all sorts of analysts keep doing that. you see moves like that in crypto, and XRP has been artificially suppressed for so long. Yeah, it's not a surprise that it's been catching up over the last year. I just don't think it's done. So yeah, XRP might feel stuck to some people, but I'm pretty damn thrilled with it. Honestly, like that's my perspective. Like, to me, is it stuck? No, like if the market's moving sideways, I guess you could say stuck in that sense. But it's not like there's something bad or wrong here. We're just ranging. It's a bit of chop. Very normal in crypto. But we're in a bull market, so we're not going to stay here that long. But I'll go ahead and wrap up here. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section below. I am not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.